Yeah, this is Evening Skews, and as always, tonight we begin with a dumbass report, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you with some of the topics we got lined up to talk about tonight, any one of them could have been contenders for this honor, but there can be only one, and for those purposes, tonight we turn not to President Donald Trump, but in fact to his arch nemesis, the Democratic Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and to be clear up front, we're not calling Pelosi herself the daily dumbass. We're saying that this story as a whole and everything related to it is among the dumber things happening in American current events. So what had happened was Speaker Pelosi got her hair did, a right that has been considered sacrosanct amongst mammas everywhere since the dawn of time. But these are not typical times we're living in. And in the age of COVID, everything is complicated up to and including getting your hair cut, especially in the state of California, where Pelosi is. In the Bay Area, hair salons have been closed down by order of law since March, and they only reopened on September 1st. But importantly, they reopened only for outdoor services. So imagine the outrage when Speaker Pelosi was caught on camera inside of a San Francisco salon and also not wearing a mask. I know it's hard to stomach, but if you think I'm upset about it, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, however you say it, Makalaki was so disturbed by the footage that she made it the backdrop of her entire press briefing today. And let's see a little bit of that.
Good afternoon, everyone. 2 briefings ago, I asked, where is Nancy Pelosi? Today, I can announce we have found Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi going into her hair salon. We will be playing the video on loop for all of you to see during the duration of this introduction.
Holy shit! It's the new Watergate. I like that we asked where she was, and then we found her. Like it's like that when Paul Bremer came out. It's like, well, they called Saddam. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Right? Yeah, and yes, playing it on a loop, and it's just Nancy Pelosi walking through a salon clearly without a mask on her face. I have a lot of thoughts about this in general, Mark, but I've been talking for a minute, so why don't you get us started? What the fuck, buddy?
This is not 30% Pelosi's fault, but she is really. I mean, I'm sure that I guess there are parts she's good at, like ushering a bill through her chamber, but the actual optics of politics, she's terrible. When she did James Corden bid in front of 37 kinds of ice cream and quarantine stock, it was like $1,000 worth of gold flake ice cream or whatever. She's like, just don't do that. It's always hilarious that we love to argue about hypocrisy in America. Like, yeah, Nancy Pelosi broke a rule by not wearing a mask and going to get her hair done. Also, rich people do what they want. She has the money to pay the place to open back up just for her, where she's only come in contact with the hairstylist, which as long as one or both of them is wearing a mask is probably fine. If Nancy Pelosi gets COVID, she's in a high risk group. It's her problem. She's not. It's just like I understand that people want to be like, well, how come you're breaking the rule, everybody? But the salons are open in the rest of California. It was just Bay, and they were open up 2 days later. It's just like I just can't bring myself to care. And it is really funny, right. That Trump campaign's losing when they're resorting to shit like this. It's just so flailing.
Yes. Well, okay. On that note, I get back to some of the details of the situation. I understand them a little bit later, but in particular regarding what you just said about they're losing when they're focusing on this. I feel like this is almost always what happens. As it's been pointed out a million times, all of Obama's biggest scandals from the right were just totally inconsequential little trivial bullshit, like the tan suit or the coffee in his hand with the salute or the mustard stain and shit like that. And then their scandals are treason and stuff. So it's just it is I feel like if you're in her position, you have to be more aware of the situation than that, dude, I haven't gotten a haircut. What do you think all this shit's about? And not because I'm worried about what people will say or whatever, but it's just it's the whole situation is weird, and but if you're in if you're under that much scrutiny and that high profile position, you do have to be more aware than that. But yes, what is the dumbest thing about all of this is how much of a thing they're trying to make out of it, because they don't have much of anything else, and that's how it almost always plays out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like it's one of those things where like everybody's right and everybody's wrong. Like Kaylee McCaffrey or whatever her name is right. She should be in Washington. Like she should be at work trying to pass a bailout bill, and she shouldn't be in a salon. But like, this is what we do in America. It's like they're not going to do anything, and she's pretending to run for re-election even though she's a shoo-in. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to make sense of any of this. It's all really, really dumb. And also, like, her response to this was basically, remember Marion Barry got caught with a prostitute turned informant on him and set him up. He got caught with crack, and he's like, the bitch set me up. Pelosi did the bitch set me up routine. She called it set up, which it absolutely was. The owner of the salon is apparently a right winger who turned the video over to Fox. But also, she said she's been going to the salon for years and years and years. So what does it tell you that this salon, who she frequents, pretty much hates her?
Right. Well, no, yeah. So I was about to bring up the setup thing, and I was also going to say, like, based on what I understand about how it played out, like, it seems like a setup to me, but it still is like you can't let that happen, in my opinion, and also B, like, even if it does play out like that, like, just again, it doesn't have to be that big of a thing. Like, I just feel like there's better ways to handle it. But tell me if I've got any of this wrong. As I understand what happened, according to Pelosi, is that she's frequented the salon for years. During the pandemic has had people come to her house and do her hair, which is like totally legal and above board as long as you got a mask on and all this other shit. And then she called once they were about to open back up, and she called to have somebody come to her house, and the lady, who turns out is a huge Trump supporter and hates Pelosi and everything, basically told her, no, it's okay. It's okay for you to come in, and we can do it inside. It's okay to have one person in there, so it'll be fine. And so Pelosi was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then the salon owner immediately released the footage and just threw her under the bus and all this. But like, again, I'm not saying that you can't. You're the Speaker of the House. If in your home state, and the salon owner tells you, it's like, no, it's fine, it's totally cool. Well, like, you can't just roll with that. But it was a setup.
We already fallen into the whole point of it, like, they do this as a dumbass today, is the whole story is a dumbass, and we're falling into the trap of talking about like it's a real news story.
No, you're right. You're right.
It's just
you're
like
100% right.
It does it. It's people break rules, including elected officials. If Ralph Nader got caught not wearing a seatbelt, it doesn't mean that seatbelt laws are stupid. You should wear your mask. You should avoid going to indoor spaces like salons. I don't care what Nancy Pelosi did. Wear a mask and do better than she did that moment.
So, moving on a little bit to some of the other dumb shit we've got lined up to talk about. Senator Ted Cruz is now retweeting Q propaganda, which is like, that's a hot thing to do on the right in this country.
He might not even
engage it.
He might even realize. So real quick, I'm
sure he probably doesn't realize it's Q propaganda. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, first of all, Ted Cruz is probably the biggest asshole in American politics. Like, he's one of the worst actors because he is smart enough to know that everything he's saying is bullshit. But he's one of those people who would be a climber no matter where he was born. If he was born in the Bay Area instead of growing up in Texas, he'd be a huge centrist lib trying to run for Speaker of the House in Nancy Pelosi's district. If he was born in 1987, in 1975 USSR, he'd be a Communist Party apparatchik. He is a climber and a freaking nerd and a dingus and a debate club moron. So he would be this guy in whatever society he was in. He always runs against California. The guy, every speech the guy gives.
Right. Well, we should like specify exactly what
Yeah.
happened with him or whatever. The state
So-
of California, who's like one of the boogeymen of the American right, passed a new law that has to do with sex crimes. And why don't you explain it, Mark? What the law actually says?
So there's been a giant gap that's kind of unfair to gay people, where it's like if you have sex with someone underage vaginally, it's less of a charge than if you do anal or oral, right? So we're not talking about like 50-year-olds sleeping with 12-year-olds. We're talking about 18-year-olds sleeping with 16-year-olds. Which the way that law is enforced, it just depends on how mad the parents get, because 18-year-olds hate 16-year-olds. We all went to high school. We know that happens.
Right.
So anyway, they just passed a law doing that, which the right and the anti-California people and Q people took to be California just legalized men having sex with children.
Right, because the law just equalized the penalties for if you're having sex with someone underage who's the same sex as you versus if it's, the opposite sex. And like you were saying, it's like that doesn't automatically mean 50-year-olds and 12-year-olds or whatever. And it was just like a disparity in the way gay crimes were treated versus straight crimes. And it was
I don't think it had anything. I don't think it affected like old people have sex with children at all. I think it just because like states usually step these out in grades. Like it's like there's a different penalty for having sex with somebody a little more than 2 years younger than you than there is for having sex with somebody 20 years younger. All of them do that for I think fairly obvious reasons. But so I don't think it affected actual pedophilia at all or anything. Like it didn't do anything with those situations. It's basically just the statutory rape between like college freshmen and college juniors. A video from a Twitter account called The Right Scoop says California just passed a bill reducing penalties for gay adults who have sex with, quote, willing same-sex minors. Ted Cruz retweeted that and said, priorities. Today's California Democrats believe we need more adults having sex with children. And when they do, they shouldn't register as sex offenders. This is extreme and very harmful to kids. Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. I mean, first of all, the old way of thinking is very weird to me. The idea that oral sex should have a higher penalty than vaginal sex is a completely different understanding of sex than every Catholic schoolgirl has. It's pretty bizarre to begin with. But like I said, Cruz is always ranting about California. They're always we're always latte sipping, soy boys or whatever, which is you do nothing but yoga 24/7, which is hilarious. I lived in Texas for 11 years. People there do yoga. People there drink Starbucks. There's got to be a dozen Starbucks at truck stops between Austin and Dallas on I-35, where you can watch construction workers in Timberlands and steel-toe work boots get lattes because they're only $4 and they're delicious and they give you a caffeine boost. It's not something just for the upper crust. It's ridiculous and it seems like it's stuck 20 years ago. But he's by the way, the dude went to frickin' Princeton, Harvard, and he's rich, so he can fuck off. Right, but California is very much it's Gomorrah. Like they point to California all the time as this hedonistic utopia where just everybody's just out here butt fucking and stuff, which by the way, like rednecks don't butt fuck. You ever seen Deliverance, but California definitely, like I said, it's a boogeyman for them in a lot of ways. And like I know we were talking about this earlier before we got on here, like if you and I'll be honest, I never really thought about it that way, but I didn't realize this until I drove from San Francisco to Los Angeles once. But like California, geographically speaking, is a massive state, and there's the two primary population centers, the Bay Area and Los Angeles and San Diego, Southern California. Mm-hmm. And those are, generally speaking, liberal bastions, although you got Orange County and places like that. But the whole rest of the state of California, though, is fucking rural. It's like farmland. You'll see a lot of pickup trucks with Trump bumper stickers and Trump signs and stuff like that. Like it's not, California as a whole is not the way that most people
picture the state at large, in my opinion.
No, I mean, if y'all have never been here, California is a farm state with two big cities. It's like that's
Right.
the reason produce is so cheap here, and like people think everyone's like skinny here because Hollywood and some sort of like exercise fanatics. That's somewhat true, but also produce is super cheap because people come in from farmers markets or farmers come into town to sell their shit, right? You drive an hour outside, 45 minutes outside of LA, and you're in the country. I mean, I'm like you stop at a bar, they're playing country music. If you go to a vineyard for a wine tasting, which is a way to get drunk in the afternoon for fairly cheap, they're playing country music because a vineyard is a farm that grows grapes for you to get drunk, right? So it's utterly bizarre. These people that drive pickup trucks, get up hay, everything we're familiar with back home.
Well, also earlier this year, when shortly after the pandemic first kicked off, there were two separate pictures that went viral at the time, and one of them didn't have anything to do with the pandemic. It was somebody posting on Facebook saying that they called to have some work done on their house, and when the guy showed up, he was wearing a white power shirt and had a picture of this mongoloid fucking mouth-breathing dipshit with a white power t-shirt on when he showed up to, like, you know, work on these people's satellite dish or whatever he was doing. And then another picture that went viral at about the same time, and this one was more widespread, was it was right when all the mask laws came into effect. And it was a guy in a grocery store who had been told he had to wear a mask. And so the mask he opted to wear was a Ku Klux Klan hood. It was a full hood. He's just like fucking cut off t-shirt and shorts or whatever. Otherwise with just a Klan hood on his head because he had to wear a mask. And both of those two pictures were in the state of California. One of them was in the northern part of California, but away from the city of San Francisco, and the Klan hood guy was in Southern California, inland, you know, Palmdale or east of there somewhere over in that direction. But like, yeah, it's not what people think it is, the state at large, you know. But
no, it's not, I mean, like we're not some like weird super progressive island separate from the rest of America. I mean, like even when we talk about like LA and San Francisco being liberal, like where they're cosmopolitanly liberal, they're fine with whatever choices you want to make in your bedroom, and you know, they're fine with brown people as long as they don't live in their neighborhoods. But like, it's not like, I mean, the LA protests are so bad because people hate the city council and the mayor and the police department because they're functionally right wing. The city council is run by developers. One of the reasons we have so horrible homeless problems because housing's so expensive because they keep driving up the price and won't do fair housing and all that stuff. So it's not like we're not some we're far from it.
Well, it's also funny because like with COVID and everything, I had like a buddy of mine that I grew up with back in Salina, Tennessee, who's a great dude and also a pretty progressive guy and everything. He texted me last night asking me if we were doing okay because he was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast and there was some comics on there talking about how things were getting really rough in Burbank, which is where I live.
Uh-huh.
And like, I don't know specifically what they're referring to, but I just couldn't help but scoff at that because I was like, dude, Burbank is just as Norman Rockwell-y as it's ever been from my white trash perspective, like compared to where I grew up and everything, moving out here, like it's Pleasantville, you know, like I can't imagine what they're talking about. And it's funny because I talked to my buddies back home about like the current situation, and like two of my good friends from back home have gotten accosted at the gas station because they had a mask on, you know, and people like started talking shit to them, tried to like start a fight or whatever because they wore a mask to the gas station. And, you know, a couple of them had told me that. And it's funny that like, I guess we just live in a time, like specifically right now, a time where everyone knows that everything is so terrible that like, it's like a grass is always greener type of thing or something, I guess. I don't know. But like the idea that apparently some people that have been in this area for a really long time are like feeling like things are getting crazy and out of hand and they got to get the fuck out of here right now is just insane to me as someone who hasn't been here that long and hears stories from, my hometown and whatnot.
I mean, I think a couple things are happening. I mean, like everything is surveilled now, everything's filmed, and everyone can get their story out there. So we have a shit ton of anecdotes, but no one pays attention to actual data, right? Like when the George Floyd protest first started, there was a TV news story that went viral. There was like a mile from my apartment, and what had happened was when I went back to dissect. So, an Instagram influencer tried to start a Black Lives Matter protest in Van Nuys, which is a suburb in the Valley. Black Lives Matter people who actually run or organize stuff are like, no, that's not with us. We don't know anything about it. Nobody go. So the Instagram influencer was like, okay, I guess the protest off. But by that point, a few people who wanted to do some looting had already, like, cops were already on high alert, right? And so a TV news truck happened to be there when a guy was trying to apparently steal some stuff from a liquor store. And the store owner was out front with holding the gun, but like a long gun, but down by his side,
right?
With his offhand, not near the trigger, just basically telling him to go away. And there was like a mildly heated argument, but then the guy left. The newspaper reporter was narrating this like it was the apocalypse. One guy trying to grab some booze out of one store, right? Cops roll up, maybe made the situation worse. They tackle the guy who's the store owner while the other person runs away. But they were covering this, and this is a half a mile from my house. What happened in Van Nuys is they smashed up one weed dispensary, one Verizon store, and that was it. But the coverage of it made it look like it was the '92 riots in LA, and it was just that story went mega viral. And I tried to tell people like nothing happened. It was, I mean, those stores, it sucks for the store owners. It shouldn't happen. Those people should get arrested if you find them. But also, like, it wasn't some big world-ending story. LA's not dangerous. It's fine.
Well, and also, I mean, to that point, I should also say, my buddy who I was talking to last night, I said all the shit I just said to you a minute ago. I said that to him too. And he was saying, and he's not a bullshitter, he was like, honestly, I feel like it's mostly fine here. He was like, no one has tried to fight me for wearing a mask, and I wear a mask everywhere I go. So it's like you said, it's all, a lot of that shit is just anecdotal or whatever, and people create their own narratives and whatnot. It just is what it is. And like I said, everything is mostly kind of shitty right now in this country for everybody for a multitude of reasons.
Every public opinion survey shows that like over 80% of people are wearing masks regularly. I don't know what regularly means, but it means they're not being assholes or obstinate about it. And like someone made this point the other day, but all the tracking data they have from cell phones, like the coverage of those the reopen protests made it look like it was like half of America. Right. But all the tracking data shows that like 98% of people were going out way less. So who are the coverage of that's just irresponsible to act like it's like some big thing because it makes good B-roll video. But that's just where we're at. It's everybody, like, my thing is like when you see something happening, be like, is this actually a thing or is it just one guy who got filmed?
Right. Well, it's also like, I mean, you just maybe sort of think about this. It's kind of like confirmation bias too, a little bit, because of like you said, the people that are more likely to just spend more time out and about, because everybody's got to get out and do things you got to do. But like me personally, I generally don't go anywhere unless it's something that I need to do or need to take care of. And the people that don't do that are just, running all over the place doing whatever they want are probably the people that are more likely to not wear a mask. Where like people like, my Meemaw back home, she's 81 years old. She literally hasn't been out of her house since this all started. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people who definitely would be wearing a mask if they were out in public are just not out in public. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So like that also has to skew the numbers a little bit. If you go out somewhere and you measure how many people are wearing a mask or are not. But moving on to the next dumb thing of the day, Joe Biden put his foot in his mouth again, despite having a mask on, doing that. Joe Biden went to Kenosha, because of all the shit going on in Kenosha. And while he was there giving his remarks, I guess he was running a little long, or the the program overall was running a little long or something, and then so as he's getting near the end of it, he said basically that he could speak at length about his plan to increase taxes on the wealthy, but if he did, quote, he'll shoot me. So I probably shouldn't do that. And now, and so this, and this is what we talked about this before with Biden's gas on the show. I wish he'd cut down on him and everything, but this is so clearly a situation where he just didn't think about the shit that he was saying. He wasn't obviously trying to say anything malicious or fucked up or disrespectful. No. It just came out of his mouth without him realizing it, which is what happens with him so often. But yeah, he's using a colloquialism. I was like, oh no, I'd love to talk for hours, but I got to get out of here. They'll shoot me. Whatever. But given where he was at in the context, you gotta cut back on that shit, man. You can't keep doing shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, I generally hate gaffe controversies because most of the time, if you can tell what the person meant to say, it's fine. I don't think he didn't mean any disrespect here. He's trying to be respectful, having his heart in the right place. And yeah, I mean, so just this, mostly put this in here so you guys know what the right's going to be talking about for the next week.
Right.
That and Pelosi's haircut.
Yes. And then here's another one. This one's from Bill Barr, and I feel like you just said, it's what did the person mean to say, or what was really going on behind the actual words that came out of their mouth. And obviously I'm very biased, but I feel like this one's a little bit different because Bill Barr was on CNN. He was talking about voter fraud and the situation with the mail and all of that, and it turns out the Attorney General of the United States apparently doesn't know a whole hell of a lot about it. So here's his comments, or here's how it transpired.
If you tried to vote a second time, you would be caught. If you voted in person,
that would be illegal if they did that. If somebody mailed in a ballot and then actually showed up to vote in person,
attempting to commit crimes is legal now if you don't actually.
On this particular state,
you can't vote twice.
Well, I don't know what the law in the particular state says, and when that vote becomes final.
Is there any state that says you can vote twice?
Well, there's some, maybe that you can change your vote up to a particular time. I don't know what the law is, so I'm not going to offer.
He was saying test the system.
If you know what he's saying, why are you asking me what he's saying?
He doesn't believe in the mail-in voting. You're the Attorney General of the United States.
Why does you? Yeah.
Well, Trump doesn't even,
yeah.
The whole point of this, Trump has done a huge flip-flop. He's now urging people to go vote by mail. He did a huge Twitter thread telling people his followers how to vote by mail this morning. What Trump did was try to point out, he tried to tell his followers to go prove how much fraud there is in the system, which there isn't, by voting twice or three or four times. So, a bunch of people are going to end up in jail for that because that's like a 5-year prison sentence for even attempting it. Yeah.
I feel like it's not at all out of bounds to expect that the Attorney General, given how big of a talking point it has been recently, would have a firm grasp of the laws where that type of thing is concerned. He's I don't know what any particular state says. It's no, that would be illegal. Sure, if you say so.
I mean, there's lots of examples of this, but they really do get high on their own supply. They've been saying this bullshit to themselves for so long, they believe it. They just voter fraud would, if it was really easy to get away with, would be the dumbest crime to commit. I'm risking huge prison time to get one extra vote for a presidential candidate.
Right.
So that doesn't benefit me personally in any way. I'm trying to get another person a job. I'm risking going 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years in prison for an act that won't even have any material effect in the election because it's one vote. So I'd have to vote 10,000 times and have to do it in a specific state for it to have any sort of effect on anything.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
In-person voter fraud, if you're considering doing it, don't. It doesn't do anything.
Right.
If you want to swing an election, you got to hack a machine, baby. That's what you got to do. So, yeah.
So, all right, moving on to the next thing, which is to me, I mean, it's also ridiculous, but a little more serious. Something that's like bothered me for a while. We've talked about it a little bit on previous episodes, but is that in my opinion, the notion that Donald Trump hates the troops. He doesn't support the troops. He hates the troops. I don't know, you know, hate's maybe a strong word, but he clearly doesn't have much respect for them. A story came out in the Atlantic that kind of detailed a lot of this, because Trump apparently had said, among many, many other things, that they were having a military parade, and Trump asked his staff not to include any wounded veterans on the grounds that spectators would feel uncomfortable in the presence of amputees. Quote, nobody wants to see that, he said. And it's, of course, he's got a long history of this shit. He got all the stuff with John McCain, you know, where he's like, I prefer soldiers who don't get captured, you know, and he called him like a loser and shit like that. And obviously recently with the bounty situation and him just very much not giving a fuck about it. He went to he visited Arlington National Cemetery in 2017 with John Kelly, with John Kelly, who was then the Secretary of Homeland Security and would soon be his chief of staff. And John Kelly's son, Robert Kelly, was in the military and was killed in Afghanistan in 2010 at the age of 29. And while Trump was there at Arlington National Cemetery with John Kelly, paying respects at his son's grave, he reportedly turned to John Kelly and said, I don't get it. What was in it for them? He just doesn't. I don't know how, when they make such a huge thing repeated, like they have full ownership of supporting the troops, which is obviously bullshit. I support the troops. A lot of liberals support the troops, but it's one of the things that like they own, you know, and have like staked their claim there. And when they make that just a foundational pillar of their whole ideology, I do not understand how this continuously gets ignored by everybody. His habit of clearly not giving a fuck about the troops or the military, just outright disrespecting them. It's insane to me.
Yeah, when I read it, I was wondering if it was going to be a big deal because it popped up in my Twitter feed, and it seems to be Jake Tapper's talking about it, so it's going to be a news story. But the I read it and I was like, is this going to have, because it's all anonymous sources, right, which is easy to dismiss. But the part that John Kelly was offered a chance to comment on the story about his son, Arlington National Cemetery, and declined to, which makes me think, I don't know if it means it's real, but it means John Kelly wants you to think it's real because he didn't use the opportunity to tell you it wasn't true. So, yeah, I mean, it's just all this stuff sounds true. I mean, obviously Trump is America was going to generate a person like him at some point, purely profit motivated, doesn't understand why anybody would do anything if it's not for a dollar, right? And yeah, I mean, the people on the left do support the troops. They want to have actual health care and not be sent to die in land wars in Asia for no discernible purpose. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be a big deal, so you guys should go read it and decide what you think about it.
But like it won't. I can almost guarantee you it won't be a big deal among his base or whatever, because like I said, it's not. This article does kind of, again, it's in the Atlantic, and the title of the article is Trump, quote, Americans who died in war are losers and suckers, because he's espoused those opinions on multiple occasions. But like, that's not new in and of itself. He's got, you know, a well-documented public history of doing shit like this and making comments like that, and it's never fucking mattered before because, you know, he went in on Colin Kaepernick when he took a knee in the NFL or what the fuck ever. So, like, I've just stopped believing that anything is ever going to actually be a big deal where his side is concerned. But this, to me, is one of the more agreed examples of, like, how do y'all reconcile your adoration of this motherfucker given everything else you purport to be about. You know, like
Well-
it's one of the most fucking like revered stances that any of them take is the, you know, unassailable nature of the American military.
Yeah,
And
but
then he's doing this.
when you talk about his support, like we talk about the people that paint 45 on the side of their truck. They're not going to hear about this, and they all
Yeah.
everything is fake news. But you're talking about like,
Right.
I mean, he's on track to lose an election by a landslide. So I mean, like this stuff, the people that are voting for him are doing so because they've
right.
rationalized it's for the judges or whatever. But like he's like they pulled he's underwater among the troops too. So it's like. And they have the same educational divide where officers fucking hate him because they have college degrees, and the rank and file probably get the news off, Facebook and Ben Shapiro's podcast. They think it's great. It's fine.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, you're right. Like I say, like, oh, none of this shit ever matters because it's like, I think I feel that way because a lot of stories like this come out or instances like this that seem like just bombshells to me. Like, oh, well, how can they possibly justify this? But he just keeps chugging along. But I mean, you're right. Like, gradually over time since he got elected, I mean, his approval rating and his support level and all that has absolutely fallen off. So clearly, this shit has had an effect on the more sane members of the American right.
I mean, he's never had a day polling over 50%. I mean, for his approval rating. He's the only president in history that we know of. Of course, they didn't have, detailed polling in like 1820 or whatever. But I mean, like also like we don't know how much like this story just dropped. We don't know what the second and third day developments are going to be. Like if Jim Mattis, who's like worshipped by Marines, comes out in 2 days and verifies that he heard some of this stuff. And then also this stuff people have different, like get their information different places and debate stuff. We're not going to see the closed military Facebook groups where this is going to get posted and debated, So I don't know what's going to, I don't know what they're going to be saying on the veteran Facebook, about this.
Right. Well, I mean, you brought up Mattis, who you're right. My buddy James is a Marine, and he had told me about the way that Mattis is revered in the Marine Corps. They've got a quote from him in this story about Trump, and he was talking about the thing when the protests first started, when Trump used.
Yeah, he wrote an op-ed about it.
Trump used people to clear out protesters with tear gas and stuff so he could go take his photo op or whatnot. And the quote from Mattis is, "When I joined the military some 50 years ago, I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution. Never did I dream that troops taking that same oath would be ordered under any circumstance to violate the constitutional rights of their fellow citizens, much less to provide a bizarre photo op for the elected commander-in-chief with military leadership standing alongside." So, I mean, it seems pretty clear to me how he feels about it.
Yeah, that was in his op-ed, right? That he wrote back when that happened. So I mean, like if he confirms elements of this story, it's going to be like that'll take it from like the 20-minute, 25-minute block on Jake Tapper's show to the lead story on ABC World News Tonight. So.
All right, let's talk about some COVID stuff for a little bit because despite the protestations of many people in this country, it is still very much a thing. The pandemic.
Robert Pattinson got it, baby. The
Batman.
Team Jacob.
Batman has got COVID. Also, the only real life superhero that I'm aware of, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, him and his entire family have COVID or have already recovered from COVID.
They're over it. Yeah, he beat it.
So that's good. That's good. Good news, obviously.
So now the cute people are saying that The Rock's in the pedo ring. So that's a new development.
Again, just like 3 weeks ago or whatever it was, you told me about QAnon for the first time on our show, and I just can't get over it. Like ever since literally every additional thing I find out about it blows my mind even more that it is becoming one of the more mainstream conspiracy theories that we've ever had in this country, because it, to me, is among the absolute dumbest. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, there was a poll the other day that it kind of scared me when I read the top of the headlines about it, that said 55% of Republicans believe in some element of QAnon, but the question was phrased very, very poorly, and it basically asked them, do you believe that there's a the question was phrased so poorly, even though it was ostensibly about Q. It essentially asked people if they believe that there is a deep state that resists Trump's policies, which I think everyone kind of agrees that. I don't think that's there. I mean, not some secret deep state. I mean, the bureaucratic state resists change. That's why no matter what president we have, we end up in the same wars.
I thought you were gonna say it had something to do with, because I feel like a lot of times with the comments I see about it have to do with, like, they try to frame it like, oh, liberals are just they don't want to admit that there's a problem with, like, child sex abuse or child sex trafficking or whatever in this country. It's like, yeah, keep turning a blind eye toward this real problem. So it's like no one is okay with children being trafficked for sexual purposes. Of course not. But that is a far cry from saying that, Tom Hanks is a pedophilic vampire or whatever. Like, they're not the same thing. It's fucking like, yeah, the one thing is an actual problem. The other thing is clearly fucking ridiculous to anyone with an operational brain.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind.
If you want to keep up with this stuff, Ben Collins is a reporter for NBC, covers the online disinformation. He's been real on top of Q for years. He's a good guy to track that, and they gave him and his reporting partner special on MSNBC on Sunday to talk about disinformation and how to talk to your relatives who've been radicalized by Facebook the last few months and try to pull them back from the ledge if you're having trouble with your uncle who thinks that Tom Hanks is drinks baby blood. But also in COVID news, this doctor at Penn State, this is in the middle of Big Ten, talking about opening up in football, said up to 35% of Big Ten athletes who had COVID-19 now show signs of inflammation of the heart muscle. So that's bad. Like we don't really have a handle on what the long-term effects of COVID are going to be.
Right.
But like it's fairly apparent that people are going to be dying, even after a vaccine's developed. People are going to be affected and dying from the side effects of COVID in 2050. People that should have lived to be 75 are going to have heart attacks at 52 or whatever. So that's not great. It's called a condition called myocarditis, and it causes heart disease, heart failure, and heart attacks and strokes. Although maybe this is a form people can recover from. Again, we don't know.
You mentioned, even with a vaccine, as far as the vaccine goes, the CDC has asked governors and health departments to prepare to distribute a vaccine as soon as November, specifically November 1st, 2 days before the election. And
it's a miracle, Trey.
Right. The HHS Secretary Azar has already come out and said that November 1st COVID vaccine deadline has, quote, nothing to do with the election. And it's like, look, I want an effective vaccine as quickly as possible. Of course I do. Everybody does. But, like, I don't know. Seems a little shady, the timeline they're laying out right now.
I mean, they absolutely should be making plans. This has nothing to do with the actual efficacy of the vaccine. That has to do with the logistics of distribution and making a plan for how to decide who gets first and making those lists and how to triage them and stuff. Because you want to slow the spread quickly. You want to get it to frontline healthcare workers, nursing homes. You want to go down the list. Like I'll be the last guy to get it deservedly. I'm not that important. I don't run into that many people. People should be making those plans, but you can do it quietly, and you don't have to time it for the election. But this is all this is all reality show bullshit. You tease what's coming up after the commercial break. You'd be like, November 1st, it's going to be the most important rose ceremony yet, Trey. We're going to decide who gets the vaccine. So yeah. So that happened.
All right, I'm gonna go to the comments over here and see what people are saying. And while I'm looking up some of these, Mark, we got a little in memoriam section tonight. Why don't you tell us about it?
A writer I like a lot named David Graeber. I might be saying his last name wrong because I've never heard it out loud. I just read his stuff. But he died in Paris today. He was one of the organizers of Occupy Wall Street, and he wrote a great book I like called Bullshit Jobs, which basically talks about how there were economists who thought that once we roboticized everything, we'd all be down to a 15-hour work week. Instead, our obsession with work has made us invent fake jobs that don't need doing, and a lot of us work in them. Me personally, I've had quite a few jobs that don't need to exist. But we gotta keep busy. Anyway, he wrote one of my favorite pieces on Ferguson. If you Google David Graeber, Graeber, Ferguson and Gawker, you'll find the piece. But it's called Ferguson and the Criminalization of American Life, about how cops spend most, like 90% of their day doing administrative stuff, like busting people for not having the right license plate tags and seatbelt violations and stuff. And it's a lot of how our city services get funded because no one wants to pay taxes. And that's what Obama's DOJ found in Ferguson when they broke down that apartment. That a full three quarters of the population of Ferguson had arrest warrants out, and they were all for almost all for administrative violations, like failure to show up for court for traffic tickets they got. And it was all a hustle. And we all live in that state now, and the whole economy is based on extracting value from people by establishing Byzantine rules that are they're designed to be intentionally impossible to follow. So you can get fined. Like your bank, for example, makes all their money charging overdraft fees and penalties for different things you didn't know you couldn't do. And yeah. Anyway, it's depressing, but it's a good read. He was a good writer. And rest in peace, David.
Yep. Rest in peace, David. All right. So some of the comments over here. John Sousadale says, I'm a vet. My dad and my brother are both disabled vets, and we're all leftist. And I put that up there because, like, I mentioned my buddy James Bain earlier, who's in the Marine Corps. He's extremely liberal, extremely progressive, and I know that the military in general has that the same stereotype that the South in general has, which is, you know, that you're automatically a hardcore conservative or whatever. And I know that's got to be frustrating if you are not and you're in the military because, you know, you're making the same sacrifices either way, obviously, and to get lumped in with the high kneeling crowd and all that has got to be annoying.
I mean, I think, like you look at like the I'm blanking on his name right now. Pat, the guy that played for the Cardinals, who joined
Pat Tillman.
Pat Tillman.
That's such a fucked up story.
Yeah, but he joined after 9/11. He quit playing football and joined the Army. Ended up in the Airborne Rangers, I think, and then he got killed by friendly fire in Afghanistan. The Army lied about it, trying to make it seem like he was he died. Anyway, he'd become a hardcore leftist who hated the war. By the time he was over, he was
right, and he's been used by the NFL ever since as this, like, you know, paragon of selfless military service or whatever. Like they you know, the NFL and the U.S. military are like this. Obviously, they walk out with their, you know, camo team gear on every October or whatever it is. It's a huge thing with them because they get a shitload of money from the American military.
Yeah, but he was. I mean, his idea of service changed. The whole thing was service. It was like he joined because he thought he wanted to serve his country in the military. Then when he got in there, and he learned that he thought the war was bullshit. And so it was like writing with Noam Chomsky to try to figure out how to get the word out so he could be of service to his nation again. And then he died before he could do anything about it.
Right. Well, yeah, but no, the dude is a hero either way, regardless of how it played out. But it's almost certain to me that he would not be happy with the way the NFL has propagandized his story. His family has, I mean, straight up said that, but they don't get any play or any acknowledgement for saying it. But, you know, they're not happy with the way that the whole thing has been treated. I
mean, I can imagine, like, you come out, after seeing the war up close, you either come out of it. You know, I always thought, like, people think that, I mean, both sides want the war to be over so they can come home. So the hardcore right soldiers, like, let me turn me loose so we can get this over with so I can get out of here. And the leftists is like, we should just leave, you know. So,
all right, and I know the whole comment doesn't show up, and also I don't know Jessica Lynn's credentials, but we'll read the comment here. Jessica says, chronic myocarditis has been found even in the asymptomatic when evaluated by imaging with high sensitivity and specificity due to the inflammatory mediators, like a bunch of letters and numbers that I'm too dumb to understand. But then she says, but no one on the right seems to care. And it's this idea that, like, the whole notion of, you know, if you're not old or fat or got asthma or whatever, you know, then fuck it, you'll be fine, is also kind of bullshit. Even like people in peak physical condition like college athletes can still see long-term health effects from this thing, and it shouldn't be downplayed by anybody for any reason, but it constantly is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're going to be like, one of the reasons we need Medicare for all is because we're going to need, like, we have no way for once COVID is over to schedule everyone to go get their heart checked to see who is going to have these complications, right? It's going to be a national health problem. So.
Leslie Ward Moody says, does anyone trust a vaccine that's been fast-tracked for political purposes? Now, me personally, it depends on the vaccine when it comes out and what everyone is saying about it. What I mean by everyone is, like, if multiple high-profile people in the medical community or whatever are telling me that it's okay, and meanwhile a bunch of people are refusing to participate in it, like, then I'm probably going to believe that it's okay. Like, because I tend to err on the side of believing the actual experts and what they have to say about it. But yeah, I hear you.
All these stuff's going to be, I mean, they're going to be developed by private labs, and they're going to be peer reviewed. And if they're, look, the reason we all know about all these Trump scandals is because they haven't been able to hide a lot of them, right? Like, there's no, I don't think they could hide smuggling it out like a placebo or something poisonous to the public where we wouldn't have someone saying not to take it. You know, yeah. So it's not just the FDA and the CDC and FDA people, but like they've had people whistleblow and walk off the job and resign. That has already happened. So,
yes. So Jordan Carroll Cranford says, talk a bit about the herd immunity bullshit Trump is pushing right now. So, Mark, what do you know about that?
Well, I mean, that's basically the strategy Sweden tried, and then UK tried, and then walked back after the numbers came out about how many people they'd be killing. But I mean, herd immunity, it took 400 years, I think, for Europe to give herd immunity from bubonic plague. So it's not like a pleasant process. Killed a third of the population of Europe, I think. So I mean, herd immunity just means compared Koresh, Jones, Hitler.
No, sorry, I tried to click on a different one and it got away.
Are we ranking on like BuzzFeed?
That's my fault.
I mean, Koresh is the least damaging of those three, I think. I mean, herd immunity just means like when enough of the population has immunity to a disease to prevent like group spread. Like when you vaccinate a population, not everyone can take the vaccine, or the vaccine is not going to be 100% effective. So, but if 85% of people are immune from it, then then it doesn't spread. So, like I think you need in a population to have herd immunity is like 65%. So, some of the more laissez-faire people were like, let's just do that, which means a lot of people are going to die before you reach that 65% plateau. And also, apparently, a lot of them are going to have damaged disease hearts. So,
yeah, the one I tried to click on, I'm just going to put this one up here in the meantime since I clicked on the wrong one. Eric and Opie says Veterans Against Trump, and like I said, I know y'all are out there. The comment I tried to click on but disappeared into the ether right when I went to click on it said something like, libertarians, what do you think?
About them?
I thought we'd get into that a little bit. We talked at the end of the show a few episodes ago about Bundy up in Oregon or whatever, who came out in support of Black Lives Matter, and we were saying like, holy shit, a libertarian who's actually apparently consistent with their views. And like basically how I feel about it, when I first found out about libertarianism, my introduction to it, I was in college and it was like, oh, they think weed should be legal and whatever. It's like, they think you should have actual personal freedom. And at first I was like, well shit, yeah, I'm down with that. But then when I found out more about it and the fiscal parts of it and everything, I just think generally speaking it's completely non-realistic for the most part.
Yeah.
But as far as like libertarians as people go, as far as I'm concerned, if they at least seem to be consistent like that, then I mean, whatever, I'm fine with it. But I feel like a lot of them that I encounter online and otherwise seem to be just as full of shit as anybody else is in a lot of ways, and that, so.
When they're principled, they supply like interesting ideas to the public, debate, like I read a lot of Reasons Libertarian magazine. I read a lot of their criminal justice stuff because I agree with a lot of it, and they make some really good points. It's nice to hear a conservative sort of viewpoint on why why the carceral state is bad, and why we need to legalize a lot of drugs, and why police overstep their, like from a conservative standpoint, I just find a lot of that interesting. But like, you got the only one in Congress is Rand Paul, who just today said that police should arrest first and figure out charges later. This is all because he got yelled at last week by protesters leaving Trump's RNC speech, which people yelled at him. He was fine. Nobody touched him. I guess he felt threatened because people were telling him to fuck off and eat shit. But I don't know, man. Yeah.
Annette Fox said the vaccine is being fast-tracked, but not for politics. These scientists know they're doing 10 years of work in 10 months. They're working their asses off to save us, and I agree with you on that.
They also have I'm not being cynical here. I'm just saying they have a tremendous profit incentive. The first company to get a working vaccine is going to make $1 trillion, and they're going to lose that $1 trillion if they kill a bunch of people with it and get sued. So
right.
No one has any interest in poisoning everyone. So
yeah, let's see here. I'm gonna go ahead and say before I even put this up, Mark. I don't know. I'm not sure off the top of my head what that is. Do you know what this is? Andrew White, what do you think of the People's Party? Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Yeah, either.
Let me look it up. We'll go on this question. I'll look it up so see if I have an opinion on it.
A lot of people are talking about herd immunity, and the general consensus is, that.
It's Dr. Cornell. It's Cornell West. It looks like. Yeah.
Okay. I like Cornell West. I don't know the specifics of the People's Party, but he's always hit for me. I remember and I never met him personally, but I always remember this time I saw him on Bill Maher's show years ago because Michael Moore was on there, and they covered and I like Michael Moore's movies, and he's super progressive and everything, but he's from Michigan, and they covered this story of some fringe group in the South who was trying to get the South to secede from the Union again. It pops up every now and then. And Michael Moore went on this whole rant about, he was like, let them, fuck them, let them go. And he was like, what has the South ever contributed to the United States of America, culturally or otherwise? Let them go. We'd be better off without them. And Cornell West shut his ass down, and he named all these musicians and everything that had come from the South, and he was like, that's just disingenuous to act like they brought nothing to the table culturally. And I've just, ever since that moment, I've been a fan of Cornell West. I've always appreciated him.
Yeah, I mean, I hate all that shit so much. One, it's like, not only are families from there, but you're in the name of your progressiveness, you're sentencing a bunch of brown and black and gay people in the South fucking lives of misery without you getting their back. And also, NASA is in the South. We're not going to go through all of it. We made a whole series about it called South and Off, guys. If you want to go watch it.
That's right.
But it's a dumb argument. And speaking of secession, we were talking about California earlier. Sometimes you'll see that those movements to break California up into 3 states, and they always phrase it as the way to get California's 6 senators. But the reason those are supported by Russia and conservative movements is because what would happen is you get 4 conservative senators and 2 liberal senators, if you're lucky. So that's why those movements are bullshit. So
yeah.
Trey can't read and listen.
No, I know I can't. I was telling Mark about that earlier.
Lots of face touching when speaking. We got nice faces, man. They feel good.
Yeah. Also, I said before, you grow a mustache like this and not fuck with it. We're in our houses with just our families where we stay the majority of the time. I promise you, we follow all the rules as well and responsibly as a person should. But yeah, I'm gonna touch this. Okay, it is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, it's like Mark said. I can't. I try to keep engaged with Mark and also look through these and pick them out, and it's hard for me because my brain ain't that good.
So can I run through this Jessica Krug story real quick before we go?
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
So our fun nonsense story of the day, and this has absolutely no meaning behind it. There's no big cultural takeaway. There's just some weird hustler. This one was a college professor in New York. Her name was Jessica Krug. That wasn't what she was going by, by the way. She had some Latino name she was going by. But she was pretending to be a black Puerto Rican lady, even though she was a white Jewish person from Kansas. And she'd been doing this hustle for a long, long time. She's a professor of African-American studies, I think. She taught African-American history. And she had gotten financial support from the Schoenberg Center for Research in Black Culture and wrote a book about her experiences as a black Puerto Rican lady. Anyway, it turns out, again, she's a straight-up white lady. But she got busted for it, and she wrote a big Medium apology where she said, I absolutely should be canceled. I believe we must name power, so you should absolutely cancel me, and I absolutely cancel myself. Anyway, so literally just 5 days ago, she wrote an article in Essence magazine, the magazine for black women, about being a black Puerto Rican lady in 2020 America. And I want I want Trey to play you this clip of her talking so you can wonder how she got away with this for decades.
Yeah, I got it skewed up here. Here we go. This is the lady that Mark is talking about.
Sold my fucking neighborhood to developers and gentrifiers.
Kansas.
I got a couple of things to say. And when you come on and tell me my time stops, fuck out of here. It's been 7 hours. Not only did I have to listen to these cops, and not just the cops, but to be honest with y'all, city council members, you posing like you opposing them for your sound bites, for your social media.
Guys,
to be honest with y'all, I'm just being honest with y'all.
Guys,
that's what
if
she does.
somebody tells you can't achieve something in America, you tell them no. You can do whatever you put your mind to. You can grow up white in Kansas and become a black Puerto Rican teacher of African American studies. God bless America.
That's right, the American dream. All right, thank you all very much. This has been another edition of Evening Skews. We'll see you next Tuesday. Love you, bye.